Good morning. It's October 26th, and today we're in the beginning of Titus. And Titus, along with Timothy, are often called the pastoral epistles. And the idea is that they were pastors of churches that Paul wrote to give instructions on. I don't know that pastors really fits this description, though, of what Paul tells Timothy and Titus both to do. I would call them maybe apostolic delegates, something like that. Probably not as elegant as calling it pastoral epistles, but and that's because they're not really acting as long-term pastors, at least as I understand it. They're actually there to establish leadership in the places that Paul has already visited, and he's leaving them behind to make sure that those churches are well established, that they have leadership going on forward, and that they can sustain themselves. And so he leaves Titus in Crete, he leaves Timothy in Ephesus so that they can bring an amount of order. And this is what he writes to Titus. He gives him some specific instructions. He tells him, the reason I left you in Crete was that you might put in order what was left unfinished and appoint elders in every town as I directed you. And then he gives some very specific instructions on what those elders are supposed to be like. And he doesn't talk about what they do, he talks about their character. And I think that's important too, because those who have the right character, who are really believers in Christ, will know what to do when the work is set in front of them. And so it's much more about telling them the qualifications one has spiritually to be an elder than it is to tell them the activities that they're going to be involved in. And so I think it's good that, obviously, that Paul leaves these instructions behind to Titus, and then we get to read over his shoulders all these years later to know what are some qualifications for elders that are laid down. And it gets funny towards the end of this second paragraph. Paul quotes from one of the Cretan prophets. Remember, Titus is on Crete. It's an island out there. He says, one of Crete's own prophets has said, Cretans are always liars, evil brutes, lazy gluttons. And then he says, this saying is true. Okay, so therefore rebuke them sharply so that they will be sound in the faith. So apparently Paul and Titus have some very rough, raw material to work with here, and this reputation is preceding them. And so I think he's just telling Titus you have to be more selective. You have to be very careful and cautious, and probably take a good amount of time to let godly character be at work in these men before you put them into leadership. In fact, he's going to tell them these kinds of things, both to Timothy and Titus, to not be too quick to lay hands on those who are potential leaders, because you want to make sure that they have some Christian maturity and a track record of doing the right things with godly character. So all this is a lot of good wisdom that we have from Paul here in Timothy and Titus, and I think you're going to enjoy reading through the book of Titus, brief as it is.